It's difficult to do these because my brother is in the next room and he's listening to D'Angelo, and all I want to do is shut up and listen. Yet here I am. So I'll start where I said I would start my episodes previously, on gratefulness. And for the past few hours before doing this, I was in the living room with my sister, my mother, and my brother, and then my sister left. And we talked for a few hours, and we used to do that a lot. In fact, we reminisced about how we used to live in a hostel. And what I mean by hostel, because I suppose people have different definitions, is it was quite a very small apartment. It was a less than ideal situation. We were sharing a very small space, the four of us. They spent, I think, a year of that time where I wasn't there, so it was the three of them while I was at uni. And then I came along during COVID of all times, and I said, let me stay with you guys. I don't want to be alone during COVID. And so the times when I was there, it was a very challenging situation. And it was amazing. We had a great time. It was difficult, very difficult. At the time when it was happening, we weren't that thrilled about it. But in retrospect, we think about it and we think, wow, we made it. We survived that situation, and we have lots of fun stories to tell. And the family unit is what kept us together. And so we haven't spent time together, the four of us, talking recently that much. But we did tonight, and I was just reminded of how perfect it feels, right? This idea that family is everything, that you need to be grateful for the small things. There's nothing as big and as amazing and as great as this situation of us just chilling and talking and joking. So I'm extremely grateful for my family. And that's, them lot, the ones that I've been spending most of my life with. And then that's also the family that's not there anymore, whether, they have passed away or they are in different parts of the world. They are, things happen. And then there's people who are becoming family as well. And so those people, they are everything. Oh, I have notes in my work notepad as well. I take notes in my laptop, on my phone, and in my work notepad. And I need to put them back together at some point. That would be easier. Someone used the term "you're very height" bro, towards me, which I thought was just a great sentence. Then people ordered all sorts of food today. That's useless. Sorry, I'm trying not to swear. We'll stick to the point I was trying to make first. So yes, I'm very grateful for them. They are my world, and they are all that matters. And tonight I was reminded of that. It was really cool. And on that note, we talked about the podcast. Yeah, so the past, we talked for the past few hours, and towards the end of that, we started talking about the podcast, just before I record my podcast. And my mother mentioned that she's watched episodes, and she's going through the whole thing, watching all of them, which is, daunting to a degree. Now, thankfully, I'm at a point now, 40 episodes in, where that won't derail me. I'm pretty comfortable now with just doing this. And I think that I have made a conscious effort throughout to try and be as honest as possible, knowing that some things I'll say might be hurtful to people in general, and especially to my family. And I believe wholeheartedly that lying is, corrupts your reality. I think that's undeniable, and that telling the truth as much as possible is the best way to live a good life. And so I try to live by that creed. And as I was thinking about this, I thought, I've mentioned many times in the past that something that's good about this exercise here is that I can watch it back, I can reflect, anyone can see it and make a comment, disagree or what have you. I can reflect on that. But also the exercise, I don't edit anything. You know, it would be much wiser for me to watch the whole thing back before I release it. But I don't edit anything. I just do the thing and then I release it. And I happen to have a terrible memory. This week I released one and then a friend made a comment and I thought, I have no clue what you're talking about. Did I talk about this? I have a terrible memory. I don't know what I said, 3 days ago. Definitely not 3 months ago. So I have to be very focused in making sure that what I'm speaking right now, what I'm saying, as much as I have notes, I give myself leeway to improvise. I have to make sure that what I'm saying, I believe in it. Whether it's hurtful or it's innocent, whatever I say, I have to believe in it because I have to, now it's out there. Anyone can see it. So if I'm lying, if I'm disguising my true intentions and someone comes across it, they're seeing a fake version of me. And then if they talk to me about it, I have to then defend that, or to apologize, more like, if I say something that's untrue. And I think it's a healthy practice in general to be focused on what you say, and just in the world in general, to be, reflecting on what you're saying in real time always, so that you don't say something that you might regret. Because in these podcasts, I don't believe I've said anything I regret as of yet. But in real life, happens all the time. I do it all the time. So it's something I should carry over to my life in general, this idea that whatever I say is said. Whatever I say is said, it exists. If I say something to someone, it now exists, it's out there. And I should make sure that whatever I put out there is a true reflection of me and is positive. No more timer. I'm not going to time these anymore. The whole 46-52 idea, I think it makes sense for a narrative, a fiction, drama, or episodes of that nature. This right here, the time doesn't concern me that much. Screw it. So I'm not going to time them anymore. The previous episode was titled Euphemistic Circumlocution. Euphemistic circumlocution. I heard this term in one of those wretched podcasts where high value men come to, throw insults at low value women. Now, this one less so, less appropriate for me to use the fingers here. And I've mentioned in the past how I feel like these are very harmful in a way. They're interesting as a way of archiving the decline of society, but they also serve to many people as a live representation of how the world is. And so they give these ideas that women are these horrible beings when it's only a minority of people. And I was watching one of those episodes, and it's given me the idea that I should do reaction videos. Now, there are many genres on YouTube of things that you can do. Reaction videos is certainly one that I look down on because you're taking someone else's content, and in most cases you're just laughing and making useless commentary on it. And I can think of hardly anyone that I look at on YouTube and think, oh, they're making commentary videos, and those are reaction videos, and those are useful, and they add something. They might be funny, they might be entertaining, but for the most part, it's not something that I look at and think, that's of high value. This thing here, I identified as this should be the number one thing for me to enter YouTube, so to speak. It's very easy to do. I've been consistent now for almost a year. So it's easy to do, and it brings value to me at the very least. And I'm able to try and bring value to an audience. But recently I've been thinking, I want to make reaction videos. Now, if I had to think of people who are really good, there is MMA Guru, who has this legendary video where he reacts to Johnny Walker being knocked out 5 times, right? And I'm very grateful that he brought this video to my attention, and he makes it better with the commentary, it's hilarious. Now, this is a very niche comment that I just made. We're talking about MMA, and then we're talking about an MMA commentator. And we're definitely talking about entertainment more than anything. Now, there's Abba and Preach, who make these types of videos that I've consumed purely out of entertainment and that haven't taught me anything. They're interesting, they're funny. And I do respect the fact that it's been a springboard for them. I believe they do comedy tours. They are comedians. They go on stage. So that's not their whole thing. A lot of people, that's their whole thing. They are able to monetize it, and then they're the person who makes commentaries or who comments on other people's content, which it's scary to a degree. But I know it's scary, the idea of being known as the person who makes comments on other people's work, and that's their work, right? But I suppose I need to face the truth. I need to accept the fact that there's no reason for me to be scared of being known on YouTube, eventually, perhaps one day, or be known as the guy who, in his boxers, talking about random stuff on YouTube, or the guy who's making commentary videos on stuff on YouTube. I don't have to be scared of that, because I know that I have more. It's a means to an end. I have more to offer. It's not what I want to do with my life. It's just a thing. So I suppose I need to stop thinking in that way, thinking, oh, I don't want to be a YouTuber. Because as I mentioned previously, the people in this space, I look at them and I think they are paper cutouts. They don't have much substance. They're just crypto kids to a degree. They found a way to make money without offering any value, any substance. And it's infuriating in a way, right? I suppose I said I need to be careful what I say, but honesty is the best policy. And I look at these dorks, I suppose the perfect term is dorks, these people who humiliate themselves on the internet, who have nothing to offer, who are disgusting, repulsive, ridiculous, have nothing to contribute to society. And I look at them becoming extremely wealthy and successful, and it enrages me. Yeah, I guess I'll go 100% into my ego right now. It enrages me. Yeah, it's still recording, right? As it should, I feel. And I suppose it's hard to say out loud, but I have to say it. It's hard to say because I'm not backing up the statement as of yet, but I 100% believe, and I have always believed, and I always will, that I am destined to be great. I did say it previously, but I think, there's this guy you might know of called Conor McGregor, and he got his ass whooped by this other guy you might know called Khabib Nurmagomedov. And Khabib is a better fighter than Conor. And Khabib doesn't talk trash. He's very quiet. And Conor McGregor made his whole career out of the fact that he is really good, but he's even better at trash talking. And, I remember having these talks with people saying, I prefer the way Khabib approaches it. He's great. He's one of the best. And he doesn't feel the need to say it. But what I like about what Conor McGregor does is that he's taken a huge risk. He's taken a risk in telling the world, hey, I'm the best. And, taking the risk of losing. Right? And so I feel like when you do that, when you take that risk, it does show, it's a way of showing confidence, right? Khabib being silent is his way of showing confidence, and it's part of his culture. But I just like the idea of taking the risk. Once again, I'm not a person who puts his stuff out there on the internet. I'm not, what do they call themselves on Instagram? A public figure? Is that the word? No way, that's way too narcissistic. Public person, I don't know. Right? I'm not that type of person. So I suppose this is where I talk my shit, this place here. I'm saying all this because I believe it, which is, fascinating, because I am not acting towards my goals. I am actively sabotaging myself. And as the record shows, for the past 40 episodes, for the past 40 weeks, I'm still here in this room. And I accept that. It's okay. It's okay. It's not always going to be the case. But on the topic of reaction videos, I titled my previous episode Euphemistic Circumlocution, because I heard that term in one of these wretched podcasts. And it was this guy. They're listening to more music. How am I supposed to talk? If only this was, able to block out the noise. Maybe I should do this with headphones on. The guy used the term euphemistic circumlocution, and I thought it was hilarious. I did the reaction video live because I mentioned this to Ty, and I gave her my breakdown of how I thought this was an amazing moment, because it was. It's very, don't use the word very, it's noteworthy. And I watch these, right? I watch this, mind junk food. I consume this junk food because I'm weak, because it's numbing my brain. I'm not doing anything. I'm just consuming, and I'm weak. But I am paying attention to a degree, and I take notes of these moments that I feel are could be used in the future. And that's how I use these in my stories when I write scripts. These moments that reveal character. And this specific moment was great because I felt like it revealed so much about this guy. Marquette something. He calls himself the saint and the sinner. He does it for real. He's, an Andrew Tate wannabe to a degree, like many people are nowadays. And it doesn't work. Right? We have to appreciate the fact that some people are able to create this persona and be it, and it works. And this guy doesn't work. He comes off like a bit of an asshole. He's clearly intelligent and, accomplished. But the fact that he used that term on that podcast, right? You have to ask yourself, why did he use the term? Why did he use that term? He used that term because he wanted to look smart, right? At some point, now that's my theory, but at some point, he found that term somehow, right? He learned it. He's clearly articulate. So he internalized it, and he waited for the right moment to use it. He's probably used it before in non-televised events. So he was waiting, and then he gets to pull it out. And what's funny about it is that now I looked it up. I had an idea of what he meant when he said it, but I didn't know the definition of euphemism, the actual definition, and I didn't know what circumlocution meant, right? So I would have been just as stumped, as stooped, as befuddled as anyone else on the panel. And the guy in front of him knew what it means, right? The guy that was being attacked by this term knew what it meant. And he summarized it in a much more eloquent, in a more intelligent way than the guy who used the term. So euphemism, if you don't know what it means, I know I didn't. Well, no, I didn't know what it meant. Euphemism is when, I've been reading the definition for the past week. The definition of euphemism is when you use a less harsh term to deflect, essentially. Use a mild term as opposed to a harsh one to deflect from the gravity of the thing you're speaking about. It's a deflection mechanism. You don't want to come off harsh, so you use a mild term. That's what euphemism means. Now, we're talking about a podcast where these high-value men come to shit on these online whores, right? So probably you can imagine why he was talking about euphemisms, maybe. And circumlocution is when you use many words when fewer would do, right? So he used these two words in combination. It sounded cool. It sounded pathetic, to be honest. And what he meant is that you're coping, right? And less is more is a principle of design. In fact, it should just a principle of the universe. Being able to get rid of the excess. When you actively remove things, you realize that you don't need that much. And when the opposite happens and you're attached to many things, it only contributes to more suffering. Less is more. Now, it's a principle that you have to use intelligently, but a very, very valuable one. And so when he was trying to come off smart, right, he used a smart word, complicating the whole situation and bringing all the attention to himself and how well versed he is, how he's read books probably and he knows the definitions of these words, and he's probably the first person I've ever heard use these two terms together. And what he meant was you're coping. And so a smarter person would have known that, one, you come off as a cunt if you use that term, and two, if you're trying to get your point across, using a term that everyone would understand would have been smarter. And so a term which is as well understood and as simple as cope, right, would have gotten the point across. Now, you don't sound as smart when you use the word cope, but you get your point across. When you use the term euphemistic circumlocution, you come off as a cunt. And so I thought it was a perfect, I don't know if I can use this term there, synecdoche. Synecdoche is when a term encapsulates the whole, when a term is used in place of the whole. So a part of something is used to refer to the whole. Such as if you call, members of the army boots, something like that. I've learned this term from the movie Synecdoche, New York, which is a depressing movie and a really good one. No idea why I went into synecdoche. What I was trying to say is that this term perfectly encapsulates his character and who he is, right? And when I make movies, I want to make movies about people. I want to make character studies. What I care about is the small things. And that's why this moment was noteworthy. It's because this moment says so much about a person. Some things work and some things don't. Once again, Andrew Tate, it works. That's undeniable, right? This guy, it doesn't. Because he's not able to make it work. Maybe he will, but the way he used that term was a clear example of how he was trying too hard. And the reason I'm reticent to make reaction videos and do this type of stuff is that I keep these videos for myself to use in the future, because certainly one day I want to create this character who's accomplished, who's smart, who's successful, and who's trying too hard, just a little too hard. And so he uses that term to come off smart. And to some people will react the same way that I did when I heard this moment, when I heard this, right? And that's the beauty of of what art can do in terms of, and cinema specifically, in terms of exploring the human condition, right? Something as simple as that term can spark all these ideas in your mind and can give you such a three-dimensional idea of this man's soul to a degree, or his character, right? And so I want to keep these for myself. I have many such instances saved on my browser, and I don't want to just put them out there so that when one day I make a movie, people can just go back to the video and think, oh, that's where he got it, right? What's his name? Stanley Kubrick has, publicly available interview where he explains The Shining and 2001 Space Odyssey. Now, there was a book being written at the same time as 2001, and I think the ending is different. I'm not certain. But in this interview, he explains exactly what he meant by the endings. And that is a mistake. You're not supposed to do that. Andrei Tarkovsky has this quote, I think, talking about Kurosawa. Is it the opposite? No, it's the opposite, right? Kurosawa was older. Oh my, I don't know what I'm talking about. But I think Kurosawa has this quote on Andrei Tarkovsky. I think. I don't remember where I read this article, but I remember that they're both part of it. Anyways, Andrei Tarkovsky made these cryptic, hard to understand, somewhat vague movies. Now you can read into them, and some of them the answers are out there. But what Kurosawa said, I believe it's Kurosawa, he said a filmmaker who's willing to explain his movies won't be successful, essentially. Now, by successful, I'm paraphrasing, by the way, I'm not quoting exactly. By successful, it doesn't mean financially successful. He means to create great art. And David Lynch says something similar, and he makes hard to understand movies, dreamlike movies. And he says it himself. The text is in the movie. I have nothing to say about the movie because the movie is the movie. I said what I had to say in the movie, right? I'm not gonna then talk about it. I'm a filmmaker. I make films, and then you consume the film, and you take what you take from it. I'm not there to undo the puzzle and then explain it to you, right? Explaining a joke is just like dissecting a frog. You understand the joke, but the frog dies in the process. You can't explain yourself. Now, the fact is that these explanations are out there for many movies, and they are incredibly useful for people like me learning about movies. But what I've learned in that process is that I will never explain myself when I make art. When I make movies specifically. So what I'm doing right now is explaining myself, ain't I? I'm giving away the source. So I'm gonna make reaction videos, I think. I'll start with this one. I'll make it. I don't know if I'll release it. But I suppose a live reaction, I suppose it could be useful. Because I think all the time, I have ideas all the time, I don't write them down, I forget them. If I were to do that, I could have an honest reaction with my improvisations, the ideas that spark from this, content that I'm watching. And then one day when I do write the script where I want to place that moment into, I'll be able to go back to the video and see maybe things that might be useful that, I wouldn't have remembered. Or maybe I'll react completely differently to the video a few years down the line. A completely, not exactly a platitude, but something we all know is that when you take a picture, you're always capturing the past, right? And I suppose I have this obsession with archiving things. I like taking pictures of things to go back to them, to remember them. I like writing things to go back to them. I'm recording myself right now so that I'm able to document the change. And, I'll say it again, I am reticent at the idea of doing this. I don't have to put it online at all. It just makes it a bit more difficult, which is more exciting. But I have to come to terms with the fact that that's just me. I like capturing reality. And yeah, just that, in fact. When you have a camera, you can just take reality and then just grab it and put it in this box, in this thing, and then you can go back to it, right? Something similar to memory, but here it's more factual, and you can just go back to it. It's there. My first episode is there. I can go back to it and see how I behaved, what I was talking about, what was going on that week. And so on one hand, there's this obsession with doing that in many different forms, and on the other, there's this fear that I'll be judged for it. I just need to get past that. Who cares if people are judging me? Tonight is UFC 296, something like that. So when I was talking about the podcast with my mother, she mentioned that she didn't expect that I would be so candid and that I would be talking about these things. I mean, I talk about semen retention, and my mother watched that thing. And she said, "Oh, I thought you'd be talking about sports and films specifically," which makes sense. And so I thought, why don't I do that? That's a good question. So I do sometimes indulge in talking about my interests, my niche interests. So I'll talk about MMA. My picks for tonight. We have Leon Edwards fighting Colby Covington. I feel like the X factor will be the mental. Colby Covington has a powerful mental. He's very powerful mentally. He's mentally strong. He's a wrestler. Turns out that's one of the best way to build your mentality, as shown by the UFC and MMA in general. He's very strong mentally. Leon has shown that he's not as strong. The mental strength came from his coach when he beat Usman the first time, and then I suppose the confidence carried over into the third fight to a degree, and the lack of confidence on the other side. So I feel like that's the X factor. He's physically gifted in comparison to Colby. He's not as skilled on the ground, but Colby is a smaller opponent than Usman, not as physically powerful. So I don't know who's going to win. I feel like Leon's going to win. If he's able to stick to the game plan, if he's able to do something similar to the third Usman fight, use his striking to control the flow of the fight. I feel like most likely he's going to win, but that line in the press conference where Colby talked about Leon's dead father was a low blow, but it was a good one. Now everyone's mocking him for stuttering and messing up the delivery of his attack previous, taking you to the ninth layer of hell. It was a great moment. It was hilarious. The fact that he said hair, I thought that was on purpose for a moment. And then he talked about the dad. And then Leon threw a bottle at him. And I think, what do I think? I've talked about this idea of stoicism many times in the past. Oh. Music, electric guitar. How am I supposed to focus? Leon showed in that press conference that he's not as stoic as he could be. And so I feel like that's a way Colby could get the better of him. So I suppose whatever I talk about, we return to the same things. I'm watching these men who are killers, who are, their bodies are weapons. And you have a guy who loses his cool based on a comment. Interesting. Then we have, I'll go based on how they were arranged on the stage. Shafkat against Wonderboy Thompson. Wonderboy is the most beautiful striker the UFC has ever seen. His movement, the things he throws, beautiful. He's old. The other guy is really good on the ground and is a good striker as well. I feel like it's a no-brainer that Shafkat will win. But if he tries to stick to the striking, I feel like he could. Thompson is not good at stuffing the takedowns. Shafkat's going to win. 90%. Then we have the midgets. It's not nice. I mean, they could destroy. They would definitely beat me in a fight. So why am I? I'm not insulting them. They're really short. I don't know enough about them. I think Pantoja will win, based on the fact that he beat the champion twice. Was it 3 times now? The previous champion. He beat the guy he's fighting before. When you become champion, you get 30% better. So they say. I feel like he's going to win. I'm probably going to be wrong because I have no idea, really. And then we have Paddy the Baddie against David Goggins' prodigy. Tony Ferguson. Tony's going to lose. He's old. It's just the way it is. And he hasn't shown anything special in his last fights. So he's going to lose and it's going to be sad. My camera just shut off. You know what? I don't know why, because it's plugged in. Well, I'm done anyways. I'm hungry. This was gold. This was cool. I was gonna say this was cool, and then I was gonna say this was good. And I said this was gold. Euphemistic circumlocution. And by the way, I can't wait to use that term in real life. And I suppose I will be using it with a tinge of sarcasm. It's nice when the camera is not recording. I'm talking to the mic. I'm really close to the mic right now. It's nice because when I look at the camera, there's the mirror, so I'm seeing myself as well. And it's strange. It makes me more conscious of the fact that when people interact with this thing that I made, they'll be looking at me. And I suppose just talking into the mic, I've thought about this is supposed to be a podcast. It's called a podcast, but it's not on any place where you could listen to a podcast. It's on YouTube where you watch it. So I suppose I should put it, I don't know how it works, but I should put it on Spotify at some point, just so it does what it's supposed to do. It's a podcast. And so I thought about just recording the sound. It would make it much easier to do as well. Take less time. It sounds trivial, but it takes a while for the video to export. I'm using a camera that has... It's a good camera, and so it takes a while to export. Yeah. To be continued. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, and thank you. I don't remember where I heard this, but the idea that these are the 2 most important words. Yes means you accept whatever comes, and thank you means that you're grateful for it. And that's life. Life happens, you have no control. You have control over some things. You have control over how you react. If you just say yes, if you just say I accept whatever comes, this wasn't good, but I accept it because that's all I can do. And thank you, because I'm alive. I get to experience this. I am the universe experiencing itself. So what else am I supposed to say but yes and thank you? I suppose that's, I talked about how the root of suffering to a degree. I suppose that is the root of suffering, is not accepting and not being grateful. Life's gonna happen, it's gonna hurt, and that's inevitable. But once you learn to just accept it, I suppose the pain is lessened. And that's my lesson. Yes, and thank you. Once again, something that I know to be true, or I'm pretty confident is true, yet I do not apply. I feel like if I do these without the camera on, I could just go on forever. Yeah, I should really look into making podcasts without the video, just talking, for the practice. To practice speaking is such a beautiful thing. It's wonderful. Once again, my perspective is I came to the UK when I was 12, spoke no English, and being a perfectionist and someone who's very critical of themselves, it was difficult. I don't like the way I speak. I have a hard time articulating when I speak in English. And it took me a while it's only recently that I've stopped being extremely self-conscious when I speak in English. And today I was explaining the menu to a table, and I was as fluent as I've ever been. I didn't stumble. I was able to articulate whatever I said. I was concise, and it made me happy. Made me really happy. I need to work on broadening my vocabulary. Of course, I still need to work on my articulation. But that happens whether I want it or not when I do these podcasts. Vocab is something that I need to put more effort into. Speaking is nice. Talking. It's nice when you're speaking to someone as well. I don't know if it's nicer, but it's nice. That's why I wanted to do the podcast with Alan. I think I would get something different out of having someone to challenge me, someone to, disagree with, and someone who might add to what I believe in at their side, and then bringing on guests. It sounds great. It would be great. I need to work on that, on making it happen, because I feel like it could be useful. Yes, and thank you.